This episode of Linux Gamecast Weekly was made possible by Patreons like you. Patreon.com/Linux Gamecast. Totally sounded like some PBS. And welcome back to another Linux Gamecast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, System 76 releases the OxyContin gaming laptop. It apparently powers up. And have you always wanted a light gun for your PC, ? No? Well, they've made one anyway.
Nvidia solves the mystery of the crashing Steam client. They did it. And is Fig a fake? Somebody get me an accountant and a lawyer and a taco.
Valve explains what happened on Christmas, but only after being called both negligent and incompetent. And we finally get around to throwing chairs at Bound by Flame, now that Jordan isn't picking his guts out.
That's what you think?
I'm Ben Stone, here at LGC Actual, switching the bits, doing this nightmare fuel every week with our tamed Canadian podcaster, the aforementioned Master Quang. Pedro Montes, and together with Chat Room Dynamic, you help us live form that special bit that is known as a cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. Pretty dull week this week, but I did finally manage to beat Shadow of Hordor. Damn, Pedro.
Disappointing ending, isn't it?
Pedro, you weren't kidding when Pedro was like, oh, it kind of ends with like QuickTime events. And I was like, it can't be that. Oh, God, it
Three
was.
of them.
Wow, really? That's all you have to do to... Okay, I'm not spoiling anything. Truggleswick, I avenged your ass, and it got me killed. But I got you avenged. I kind of got gang jumped on that nonsense. What's going on, J-Baby?
Well, I finally got the time to sit down and start seriously playing Divinity Original Sin, and I actually really like it. It runs very, very well at 4K, regularly getting like 68 FPS on there, so good on them for that. Still crashes out in the quit. But I'm actually looking forward to when I can play Divinity Original Sin 2 in the year 21,000, after Arrakis has been colonized and the spice has been flowing.
And over here, well, I got one of them gaming chairs.
Yo, drift swag!
Doritos.
I'm still debating internally whether or not it's worth 190 euros, but it's comfy. I'll give it that.
Does it vibrate?
No.
Well,
Well, then I'd
Jordan,
return
there's something that is constantly vibrating when it's not handing out personal details.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The horse is looking
You
a
get
bit
doxed,
exposed this
you
week.
get
It's our
doxed.
Steamax
Update.
All right, what's this?
Yes.
It's the war on Christmas.
Valve, yes. Valve, if you may remember, Valve had that little snafu that Van and Jordan and MT talked about last week. And they had been quiet after that. There was like no explanation. They only sent a teeny tiny press release to a couple of media outlets and nothing else. But now they have made an announcement and they describe what happened. They don't exactly say it's their fault, but they implied it. They also went back on their statement that said that people were getting cached pages that were meant for someone else for less than an hour. It turns out it was more than an hour, considerably more than an hour. And they do apologize, like the very last sentence is, "We apologize to everyone whose personal information was exposed by this error and for interruption of the Steam service, because 1 hour during the Christmas sale, that's a lot of money they lost."
It is. But I mean, honestly, in the realm of these sorts of screw-ups, this is far from the worst. I wouldn't even say this hits the top 10. Yes, this entire article is a bunch of damage control and a bunch of sweet talking, because a lot of people were upset that their personal information was released. But you got to remember,
Valve
even a couple
doxed
years ago... What? We're going?
Valve doxed a bunch of people. Negligently, but they did.
They did, yes, it's true. And they imply that it's one of their caching partners things. So I don't know what exactly that is, if they're dealing with multiple CDNs. They're, like I said, they're being quiet, they're being apologetic. But I mean, look back to a couple of years ago, back when Sony was discovered to not be encrypting credit card information and sending it over plain text. I would say that is a much worse, like, failure to secure your customer data, and that was like out of the news after a week. So I don't know.
If you haven't watched it, I mean, this coincidentally followed immediately after Total Biscuits just broke his digital foot off in Valve's ass organ, and it's kind of good. I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but I watched that, and I was, do yourself a favor, go check that out. I mean, that was very well put together. But since we're talking about crashing,
oh yes. So there was a bit of a forum post on the Nvidia developer forums and the CUDA zone. It's not like the spoiler zone at all. There's a lot less dicks and jello bondage, but someone was finally looking into why their Steam client was crashing, and they had themselves a little stack trace. And it turns out that the Nvidia guys have proven that there is a regression in the 358 drivers that will cause the Steam client to crash. They do apparently have a fix, but it's coming in the next beta update, which probably won't be out for another couple of weeks. So good on them for fixing that, because it was getting kind of annoying, especially when it would take just the game with it as well. That was the worst. You're in the middle of something, Steam notes, the rest of the game does as well.
I don't know, man. I'm just glad we have like some type of answer, because like, well, is it because I'm in the beta? No, that's not it. I got out of the beta, and random as fuck all. It's like, oh, did you scroll up through your game list too fast? That's a spike crash. P-Man?
Yeah, on my end, on the desktop side at least, I haven't had many crashes. Where I've had a lot of crashes is on the Steam box. And that still doesn't explain why the SteamOS Big Picture session on the Steam box keeps crashing, because the drivers on that one are still using the 352 branch. So I don't know what the hell's up with that.
You're probably just doing it wrong.
Yeah, probably.
But you know, I got a raging clue though.
Oh, sweet.
After all this mystery solving, yeah, this is Steam Sale Detectives, a subreddit composed of people suffering from extreme paranoid apophenia that attempt to seek connections between various things on the Steam store to some degree of success. You could have got the red herring Steam gift yesterday. There's instructions on how to do this. There's some fucked up flowchart here as well. It reminds me of someone tried to break down the plot of Metal Gear Solid 2 in the form of flowchart, and it was slightly more comprehensible than the one they have on this thread. The link to it's in our show notes. I highly suggest you check it out if you're into that stuff. I used to be into ARGs when I was young and had a lot of time on my hands, but I was never too good or obsessive at those, so...
I don't know. I mean, I looked at that. Yeah, I went through the instructions to get the red herring badge, and I immediately, just when I started looking at flowchart, I realized that there are people out there more dedicated to this one thing than I've ever been to anything in my life. Right? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing this does for me is Valve, after the Christmas snafu, hoping to regain some good faith with the ARG crowd. It's nothing else.
I don't think so. But, you know, this podcast, of course, is brought to you by Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about this. What was the name of the game?
This was...
Ori and the Blind Forest.
That's right.
Yes.
Well,
Ori
the developer got back because, you know, with most games, everyone's like, what about the Linux port? What about the Linux port? Come on, Brad. And he wrote back. He's like, guys, making ports is something. Basically, they signed a deal with Microsoft. You know, they paid for the party, so they get to call the shots. For the time being, Ori will only be available on Microsoft platforms, and that's also going to exclude PS4, OS X, IRIX, and OS 2.
Not Warp!
I know, I'm sorry. It's a dark day for OS 2.
My heart is
broken.
And there's still ATMs running that. I've seen it. Granted, this is a full bird culture move, but it's not targeted at Linux, because I've seen so many people who's like, Microsoft is Linux. Normally deals like this is your exclusive, what do you get, about 12 to 18 months of that, then it'll come out on other platforms, right?
Yeah, that's the thing about publishers. They have the money that you need in order to make the game you want, but you're going to have to abide by their rules. That said, though, fuck Microsoft.
And I mean, this ultimately didn't help stop Dust or Mark of the Ninja, both published by Microsoft Studios as well.
Yeah,
like
but it's
Vince
going
said,
to delay
it's very likely
game.
a timed exclusivity thing. So Yeah, what can you do? Making games is expensive. Just ask Double Fine. Yeah. Oh, we'll get to that later.
No. Now we're talking about Open City, which is from a Russian team who make Android apps.
Very poor grammar, comrade.
They make good physics machines as well.
And they put it on Steam. They went through Greenlight first time, then they got in, they got a couple of sales. It's all fine. But yeah, let's not do that anymore. This is Mad Out Open City. They describe it as a combat race in Open City.
Doesn't even need opponents. RAM. This is brilliant engineering.
It doesn't need a CPU either, man.
No. Just listen to the grammar. Field dynamic chases and fighting battles. Enjoy good physics machines. You can choose from more than 24 cars. Open world and a variety of weather conditions.
Pedro. That makes perfect sense if you put comrade at the end of every...
Comrade. Oh, right. If I speak with Russian next...
It kind of reminds me of a friend of mine talking to this Brazilian speed metal guitarist, and he was like, how'd you get so good? Much practice for brutal speed metal attack. But
yeah, this is the first of their games or Android apps, whatever you want to call them, to show up in early access. Mm-hmm. They
what is it? What's the game about?
They're apparently trying to do something different. The base game is similar to the previous iterations. It's just a racing game where your cars have guns and you shoot other people, and the AI is kind of a dick because they keep
they're thinking of adding some sort of driver style element where you can like leave the cars.
Yeah,
but they do actually say on the early access thing that they don't know how much of that is actually going to be a focus of the gameplay. They're hoping that people who pay early access will actually engage with the developers, which never really happens, you guys. Letting the community shape the game is code for I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I had an idea for about 20% of a game. You guys need to tell me what you want.
The biggest difference here is that they have an open world sort of thing going on, and as Jordan mentioned, you can actually leave your car and enter some of the vehicles spotted around the map and use those to race against the AI. And so far, this is single player only. They say that, again, they don't know what they're doing exactly with the game, what the big focus is going to be. So right now, it's single player.
They've written their engine in Unity, sort of, kind of.
Yes.
They just want some directions. Well, but, I mean, it is best physics machines.
One of the biggest takeaways from this, go watch our Mad Out review, which is basically this game in its current state, effectively, and it's pretty rubbish. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty bad, and doesn't look horrible. I can't say it looks horrible.
No, the graphics actually pretty good. The gameplay, not so much.
Yeah, the gameplay's maybe not so good, comrade, but yeah, definitely check it out if you get a chance. But I don't know. I mean, Steam refunds, so we can just point you at bullshit like that now. Yep. Life hack.
Yeah, it makes it easier to gather content for the show. This is Adventure in the Tower of Flight, where it's really just a 4x3 harmless little pixel platformer. It's priced to sell at $2. Instead of jumping, you fly around, and that just informs the puzzles. It looks like it's one of those wannabe Super Nintendo games that didn't really figure out how pixels look on a TV.
Low budget Zelda 2. Yeah, man.
It's kind of more like Kid Icarus.
Yeah, Kid Icarus, the early...
I don't know, man. I'm saying Zelda 2 because I've been trapped in that mothering castle, and if you played Zelda 2, you know the one I'm talking about for too long. And I was like, those columns look kind of familiar. Maybe a bit
the enemies remind me of like the very first two Commander Keens. Mm-hmm. They have a very Apogee style to them, and the gems and all the collectibles. They wear their inspiration on their nose, definitely.
And like I said, it's priced to sell. Normally it's $8. It's on sale now for $2. But you know what else you can get for $2, Ven?
No.
You can, well, for an additional $2.50 a week, or for an additional 50 cents a week, you can get show note access through a wonderful Patreon campaign. Oh my God, yeah. Patreon.com/LinuxGameCast. It's a thing. It's amazing. We're at 62 patrons right now. We got a new one this week. His name is, and I got to scroll down, Ithro. Not Ithor, like the Ithorians from Star Wars. Ithro. He gave us some money, and you too can give us some support. Head on over to patreon.com/LinuxGameCast.
Pretty brilliant. That's how we do it. We're still coming
are we getting an old cash, or is this the latest up to date thing?
It's
this is the latest
end of the month
thing.
thing, Jordan. Oh, no.
Yeah, end of the month where everyone's taking off their donation. Guys, we get that funds are short. All we're asking for is 5 cents a show. It's value for value, as Ven would say.
Right.
You're entertained by us. We just want to be able to continue to delivering content to you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
and if you don't have the wet stinkies to actually, support us, don't make those illegal pledges or non-viable pledges, whatever.
or the Pedro police will come after you.
Yes, Pedro will arrest you for the illegal pledges.
Just,
that
share the Patreon page with someone who might like Linux gaming.
Screech on over to our donate page, go through shop on the Amazons with our affiliate link and all that.
Yeah,
Brilliant
that's
business.
there. Yeah.
It all helps out because we're all independently wealthy, but we just hate throwing money at the show.
Definitely coming up is, because we need a little bit of a buffer because we got that new show that we really want to do, Linux Gamecast, weekly, daily Wednesdays. And we know a lot of people have even upped their pledges, and we know things changed like twice on us now. Because Patreon refactored the way they did their monies, and we've lowered the goals. I mean,
we have, yes.
Yeah. So we're making good on that. So if you want to see that, let's do it.
Yeah, coming up next, we debate installing Linux on an Xbox One, and then we debate installing Linux on another Xbox One. Oh, snap.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's the news. And would you look at that? A week where we don't start the news talking about drivers. Jordan, what are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about installing Linux on your PlayStation 4, not your PlayStation 3. There's no yellow dog here. Because, you might remember that the modern generation of consoles are nothing more than a bunch of glorified laptops slapped in fancy boxes with integrated power supplies and some crippled OS running on top of them. But if you want to actually get a real operating system running, you can go to the folks at Failoverflow. This is a story from VentureBeat.com, and I'm not sure it's the same Jeff Grubb who writes Magic the Gathering cards, but it's a Jeff Grubb who wrote the article nonetheless. These guys, Failoverflow, have successfully cracked the PS4's bootloader and have a version of Linux up and running on there. Apparently, who designed the Southbridge on this console was smoking some crazy good shit because it's a bit insane, but they have a modded version of Pokemon running on it too, dubbed Pokemon PlayStation Edition. It's kind of neat. But, let's be honest. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't get Linux running on an Xbox One just to see the Microsoft freak out.
Well, I mean, yes, that would be entertaining, granted. However, I mean, the accomplishment here is the jailbreak. We got to look at it like that. Because getting Linux to run on something that's already running FreeBSD is like saying you managed to replace, Red Hat with a CentOS on a machine. I mean, that's a big deal. Good news coming from that camp is, unlike with the PS3, this is like basically a fucking laptop hardware, and they think they will have OpenGL, unfortunately, AMD GL, up and running in months instead of years. P-Man, you had some words on this.
Yeah, they're actually talking on their blog, if you track down their blog post. They're asking like Mesa developers or anyone who is familiar with the open source implementation of the AMD driver to get in touch with them so they can get a 3D acceleration running. And they said that it was actually easier to get the console to the jailbreak state than it was to actually modify the ROM that they're running of Pokemon on that screenshot. Now, all they need to do, in my opinion, is to dump the original Sony firmware somewhere and start working on that compatibility layer, because I want to play Bloodborne on my Linux.
So what would you call it in this case? Pine PlayStation is not an emulator.
But seriously, Sony, just like let this one slide to quote extra credits. Do not tangle with the kind of people that install Linux on their PlayStations. Just don't. It's a bad idea.
Because you mean it's no computer designed from the ground up to run Linux. Am I right?
And come on, you think about it, Brent. But this is actually a very good thing for Linux with the PS4 being hacked. I mean, it just goes to show no matter how old, outdated, or underpowered the hardware is, you can still install Linux on it. It's brilliant.
Woohoo! Yeah.
Shots
Up
fired.
next.
System 76, Moxie Cotton Pro Oryx Pro is the Ubuntu Linux gaming laptop of your dreams. Review in brackets. This does come with a 15.6-inch 1080p 980M.
Yeah.
32 gigajoules of RAM, 250 that, and 5.5 pounds. That's a heavy little sucker, isn't it?
You can do some bicep curls with it. Yeah. Go on.
No, go ahead. I mean, because this review needs air quotes, doesn't it, Jay?
Oh yeah, no, it's a bit sparse. Oh my god, the hardware is great. Of course the hardware is great. But if you actually look at the product description for this kind of thing, they say, well, it's the experience that only a laptop designed from the ground up to run Linux can give you. Buddy, listen. The only thing you require for a laptop to run Linux from the ground up is to make sure that it has an Intel wireless card. And I mean, one of the big things about System 76 that a lot of the actual users tend to have issues with is the build quality is really, really cheap. And really, a 1080p screen.
Well, no, I mean, I definitely got to say that. I mean, this thing clocks in at over 2,000 wet, stinky caches.
Yes.
And I'm definitely going to say this. Seriously, if the price of your gaming laptop starts with a 2, the resolution should not start with a fuck-mothering 1.
Fucking this. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the best thing about System 76 laptops is that if they have a discrete Nvidia GPU in them, they disabled the graphics adapter on the CPU. That way you don't have to deal with Optimus and all the shit.
Wait, are you saying this motherfucker starts noping the battery on boot?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. This is running Linux on a laptop. Are you expecting any degree of battery life? Heyo. Up next.
No. I mean, one more thing.
Lordy.
He goes in, he's talking about gamers don't typically target laptops for playing. Never met a college student, have you? Somebody in university? And even when they do, they will likely aim for Windows 7, 8, or 10. Bzzz. I'm sorry. Even I know that no one aims for Windows 8. It's never happened. You're just making shit up at this point, Brian.
No, you're aiming for Windows 7, and then someone knocks you in the way of Windows 8, and by the time you realize what happens, you're a little too in too deep. But yeah.
All right.
I mean, like the specs are there, but for what you're getting, I don't think it's worth the money. This is from friend of the show, Rob Loach. The occasional contributor to Lutrus as well. He has written a Lutrus Kodi add-on. So through your Xbox Media Center Kodi setup, you can start Lutrus through Steam, through Kodi, through Lutrus, through what? My brain hurts.
Tom would like to work with you right now.
Ow!
P-Baby, what's Lutrus? I've never heard of it.
Lutrus is a very simple front end that allows you, similar to play on Linux, it allows you to set up both Linux native, Wine, and, well, not just both, but, all the emulators. Well, not all just yet, but it's got a crap ton of emulators. So if you have a game or a ROM for a game, chances are Lutrus is probably going to be able to do something with it. And it sets everything up for you. It's actually stupidly easy. I tried the other day to set Dark Souls going through Lutrus. It was literally one click. It installed the Wine version of Steam, put in my password, away we go. It started downloading it. It set up Wine on its own prefix. No issues. Good on you, Strider. Good on
One
you.
of the really nice things about Lutrus as well is if you have a bunch of older Loki titles or older Linux games that are a bitch to get running, this will do this for you. Unreal Tournament, Quake, Hexen, all those old Loki
Neverwinter
games
Nights.
up and running.
Neverwinter Nights is literally a one click, and all you have to do is point Lutrus at the exe file that you download from GOG.
Yeah, I mean, definitely check it out. Frenchie was talking about in Chat Realm Static in our forums at linuxgamecast.com that he's got most of the Doom titles and stuff. Wondering if you know Who's Strider? The French guy that sometimes is on our show.
Yes, Frenchie.
Constantly giving us shit.
So, yeah.
But up next, it's time to feel good about FNA.
All right.
More FNA.
Corruption.
Yes. This is the first FNA of 2016. And it's a small update, according to Flibit. It's a teeny tiny fix to add number of game pads if you have an XNA game and you want to if you want the game to be aware of how many game pads you have connected at some point, FNA can do that now. And there's also an exact fix that was causing some sound issues at lower frame rates. If a frame was taking too long to be rendered, some sounds might actually be like duplicated because the frame was taking too long. And he also updated Mono Kickstart to Mono 405, and he says that he's laying the groundwork for another big update soon, which includes Vulkan.
Well, this is Flipit's first entry in his monthly release goal as well. One of the other important things here is that they've normalized a bunch of their code, so all the platform specific bits within FNA are stock. They're no longer like random custom patches and whatnot. It's all just stock everything. It's all the dependencies have been merged upstream, which is good for the greater ecosystem as a whole, especially because there's some SDL 2.04 stuff coming in the next release. So that's going to be good.
Go!
And apparently I got volunteered for this story.
You did. You're Portuguese.
did.
You're obsessed with football. That's how it works, right?
Supposedly, yes, that's the stereotype. Unfortunately, I don't fit it, but this is properly decent.
So what you do is you take your shirt and you flip it over your head, man, and scream goal. Do it. Come on.
Properlydecent.com. The links for this will be in the show notes. This guy, it's Properly Decent, is a one-man studio, and he made Gameplay Football, which is his attempt to recreate the original football games like they were in the Saturn era, which they were much more direct. This is his words. I don't know. I honestly couldn't be asked. The moment I saw that it was football or soccer, whatever you want to call it, I just nope.
I don't know.
Right,
I mean, it's definitely a thing. I mean, this is his beta 2 of this particular project. I was like, okay, I mean, I'll try it out because we do need some sports games. I'm sorry. I do like me some sports on the Linuxes, and let's just face it, that Axis football thing is still busted.
Pro Evolution Soccer.
Football Manager
we
doesn't
get
do it
that
for
on
you?
Linux.
No, Spreadsheet Simulator 2015 doesn't. Unity game went to launch it, and this thing's like, where libboost thread 1.4 not. Wait, really? What 1.4? What technology of ancient times are you and Pedro?
Ubuntu 13.04.
13 fuck mothering 04.
I tried running this fucker. It's missing libgsc. I don't even know what the hell that is.
I mean, I might have gotten further. I mean, I'm sure I could have just symlinked that to a current version, but kind of ran into that wall of don't care that much. But it's definitely priced to sell. I mean, as in free. You can get the 64-bit only, and check out the guy's site. I mean, it's always neat to see somebody working on a solo project, and I mean, it's not fugly. So,
yeah, it's not a Unity game either. The directory layout isn't.
Pew pew.
Yeah, pew pew. PewDiePie.
Railgun. Experience first-person games the way they were meant to be played, son. That's right. We're going to give you a controller to strap to a gun.
It's an airsoft gun, not a real gun, guys.
Oh, an airsoft gun?
Yeah.
Aw.
It's got the red tip.
Yeah, this is definitely a thing. This will introduce
controlling the Millennium Falcon with a rifle. My God.
This is absolutely going to introduce a whole new level of popcorn for the 2016 swatting season. Because it's just you get swatted. You sit there and you're playing your game. Door gets kicked in. You immediately turn around with an airsoft rifle. Blam!
I'm totally taking bets for how long someone's actually going to be shot with how long it takes for someone to get shot with an actual gun because of this. That's there's a racist sounding remark I can make, but let's not do that on the air. No.
Yeah, no. Hi, NSA. Anyway, I was looking at this and I'm like, so this is Light Gun 2.0. I had like an actual light gun, a Logic 3 Predator 2, Manchester United 1, back in 1998. Are we really? Does the nostalgia really go that far when it comes to peripherals?
Well, they're saying that there's going to be some Oculus integration as well. So, I mean, if you're going to be doing the VR thing, you might as well have a prop. But I don't know. Like, the way they show the controller...
if you're fucking holding this when they kick the door...
You're going to get shot. As soon as SWAT comes in the door, you're getting shot.
This is a Kickstarter thing. It's Railgun. You can find this in the show notes. They're currently looking for 100,000 wet stinky caches. They currently have 28,000 with 18 days to go.
If you're going to back this, you might want to get some insurance as well. Just saying.
Or what is it? One of those magnetically locked doors, right?
Maybe invest in some flak jackets. Who knows?
But that's not the most psycho thing we've seen.
Oh, yeah. So this is an interesting video from Dangerous Analysis. This is a guy on YouTube who was discussing sort of the financial organization of Fig. What's Fig? You never heard of it? Well, you might have heard of Psychonauts, that game that everyone has a hard-on for, and their crowdfunding campaign for the sequel being hosted on this crowdfunding platform that allows you to get dividends from games, which seems all great and good. Except this guy has actually gone through the legal paperwork that these companies had to file in order to facilitate a crowdfunding platform like Fig, and it's not looking too good because you buy prorated shares at a fraction of their value that are non-controlling that you have to hold on to for 6 to 12 months, at which point Fig and all its associated shell company network could be entirely liquidated, and you would get no money because they'd have to pay back the IRS and all the creditors before you even get a red cent. So the guy seems to paint it in a fairly negative light, and given the evidence that he displays, that seems to be the case. But at the same time, this may be what is required in order to facilitate a crowdfunding model like what Fig promises. So really, we should wait and see. Maybe get a couple other lawyers and accountants to look in on this.
I mean, definitely with the just looking at this, I mean, this guy is actually does have a degree in finance.
He's a CA, he says, or something like that.
And, is this fraud? No, it's not. Is it sketchy and fuck all? Yeah, a little bit of that. But by the way he described it, I mean, and everyone who's watched this video is like, well, maybe you want to go, well, maybe. This guy doesn't really spin any hyperbole or anything like that. He was like, this is just exactly what it says in the mice type that you agree to. I mean, it's publicly available. You just don't ever really see it. But it looks, according to the video, like a Fig Co. is pretty much set to kind of nope at the end of the year, kind of dissolving as a company. What do you think, Peanut?
Yeah, he actually goes into detail because there's a bit in, like, if you become an investor, you have to agree to the investors agreement type of thing that they have going. And it actually says there that their financial team did not think that this was a promising endeavor. In fact, it's a going concern or a growing concern or whatever they call it, which means that most companies that are dubbed like that usually don't last more than 6 to 12 months. So Fig and its parent front company are going
and the network of shell companies in between them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All registered in Delaware, which is the tax haven of the United States.
Yeah, and basically, after the IRS and all the other taxes have been paid, the only people that will get money from the investors is going to be Double Fine, aka Tim Schafer, which, let's face it, nowadays he's constantly in the limelight for not being very good at managing his finances.
I guess, Jordan, maybe you can elaborate on this a bit more. So when you buy a share, you have no controlling options, right?
No, they are specifically non-controlling shares.
So you have no fucking say.
You're getting shafted with those shares.
Yeah, you are. But like I said, like, it may be this is what's actually required in order to facilitate the funding model that Fig has set up.
Well, to make it legal sauce, because they did point out that the way actually do this, I mean, doesn't actually kick in until later this year, so...
Yeah, that's the other thing. You guys should absolutely watch the video. Like I said, I don't think we should just be taking this one guy's word on it, but he does raise some incredibly valid points, and he seems to be coming from a knowledgeable standpoint. So there may be some grain of truth to what he says, and based on the information he shows, it is pretty damning against Double Fine. But are we maybe just looking for things to shit on? I don't know. That's the much larger question. Yeah. Either way, for sure it is sketchy as fuck. But coming up next, we are Bound to the Chairs by Flame. And we're gonna throw some chairs at Bound by Flame. Is thou ready for thine chairquisition? This weeketh we... I give up. I can't do demon talk. We're reviewing Bound by Flame. It's from Spiders, the Game Weavers. Built on the Silk engine. You can pick it up for $30 or $35 in Canadian dollars, because fuck you, Canada. What is it? You are a mercenary possessed by a flame demon in a desperate world ravaged by the 7 ice lords. This RPG where every choice counts. All 6 of them. You'll have to choose between unleashing the powers of the beast within and rejecting its demonic influence. And this was supposed to be reviewed 2 weeks ago, but I was too busy emptying my stomach contents on my expensive hardware. But now that that's done, we can get into the chairquisition. 1 chair means that it's garbage. 2 chairs means that it's meh. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means that it's amazeballs. We also got a categories. Oh, Doom. Makes with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. And while Ven is scrambling to click on the right thing, let's kick this review off. Ven, did Bound by Flame make with the working?
Well, Brother Svang, everything works over here on the Ubuntu 1404 LTS. 8150 octo-core, 980 power displayed with a 4K monitor. Box of business. Even with everything on 11, I'm still averaging, somewhere between, depending if you're in town or not. You go to town, things go to shit. But, usually around 60 FERPs.
That's usually what happens when you go to town.
Unlike these other two, let's just say Pedro, I'm not having issues with my multi-monitor setup because I use separate freedom screens, and none of that other business. So we'd have to give this 4 chairs out of the box.
Yeah, I can top Ben on this because I use separate Freedom GPUs, and I got no issues on the Fedora 22-powered 64-bit Intel i7 6700K with 32 gigs RAM, and the Nvidia GTX 980 hooked up to the 4K monitor. It's 4 chairs. It works. It also worked on the Steam box with the A8 or A10 5800K, and the 750 Ti works great on that too. So.
Yeah, I have to think of a chair right off the bat, because if I try to run it on the Amiga with the FX 8370E and the GTX 970, it disables the secondary monitor if I set the game to full screen. The reason I'm only dinging it 1 instead of the usual 2 is because I played 99.98% of this game on the Steam box. And on the Steam box, it worked right out of the boxes. The Steam box has an Athlon X4 860K with the GTX 750 Ti. So there it ran out of the box, no issues. Also, one thing I noticed is this game does not respect XDG standards. It dumps the config folder and the save folder in your home without even trying to hide it. Some games will actually put like a dot before the folder name to put it hidden, but not even this one. So yeah, it gets 3 chairs.
I don't know. I'd find most XGG compliant games are a bit hit and miss. And honestly, I'd rather have the 1 folder in my home directory versus a bunch of hidden folders I gotta sift through. But anyways, that's 3 chairs for Makes with the Working. Up next is Shining the Sounds. Ven!
Well, it has a funky cel-shaded aesthetic. Sometimes. I mean, if you don't really notice it at first, but sometimes it makes things look downright cartoonish. That said, the first 30 minutes of this game look pretty mothering good. Notice how I said the first 30 minutes? Yeah, about that. Not that the rest of the game looks like liquid arse, but there'll be a difference. I mean, the animation rigging kind of ranges from passable to fucking really. And I would say the same goes for lip sync, but that either works or the motherfuckers on screen break out some serious telepathic shite because their mouth organs do not make with the working. And then we have the dialogue. And the one character that drove me extra crazy, Captain Demon Pants. Mr. Thou this, thou that, seriously. Not all demons speak like that. Yes, in some urban areas of the underworld, this type of speech is common, but it's not an accurate portrayal of demon culture. I'm trying to keep a level head about this because I don't want to come across as just another angry demon. Hashtag Demon Lives Matter. Shite moves and shite makes noises. I mean, nothing to report home about. Not busted, but not great. 2 chairs for that.
Then you gotta watch out with that demon cultural appropriation. Demon Tumblr might get on you and they'd be really, really mad. No, but like modern 3D graphics on Linux, what year is this? Oh, wait. I mean, it's nice to see a game that looks like this for once, that doesn't run like ass like Raven's Cry. And it looks as good as a non-Unity, non-UE4 3D indie title can. I mean, they did a pretty good job with the custom engine. The soundtrack, for sure, from what I've listened to, leans really, really heavily on the Conan the Barbarian score for a lot of inspiration. Because we got a brass section, you guys. We're going to blow the hell out of those horns. The animation rigging can be a bit iffy at times, but that's about par for the course for this game. Is about PS3, Xbox 360 quality graphics, which is, I mean, still pretty good for what you get on PC these days. But yeah, going back to the dialogue, I mean, after 20 years of playing Dungeons and Dragons, I still cringe when listening to like made up fantasy names. Less is more, people. Less is more. I'll give it 3 cheers.
Let's start with the sounds with this one. It's very clear that the voice actors recorded their lines in different places and with different microphones. Hell, some of them even recorded lines from the exact same dialogue in different days and in different states of mind. That's really the only excuse I can think of to justify the lack of tonal consistency in every single conversation that characters have with one another. The main character, Vulcan, will be talking to Sybil, one of the companions, and he'll be really pissed off, and then in the very next line, he is just completely level-headed, nothing to point at. Dude! That's kind of jarring. And to finish up the sound, I'm gonna give it to the composer guy, Olivier Derivière. He did a good job on the background music whenever you hear it, because when you're in the heat of battle, and combat in this game is stupidly hard, it fits the thematical fantasy setting, as it were. I'm really not complaining about that. The graphics, yeah, they fit. I got nothing to complain about, but there's certainly nothing to write home about either, so I'm going to give it 3 chairs.
All right, so that's 2 chairs for Shiny and Sounds. And up next is Control. Then.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, apparently the controller, this is our excellent controller because fuck off, I'm giving Microsoft 1 dime intentionally, works on Linux, unlike Microsoft on the Windows. There's a huge rage threads and the discussion group on the Steam just, why are you focusing on Linux port when the controller doesn't work right under Windows? Works on Linux, Brad, and better yet, things are logically laid out. I mean, 99.99% of everything I need to do is right there from the get-go. No big complaints about that. There is one thing, though. Every now and then, Mr. Mercenary Pants, he'll do the auto walk. Not the auto moonwalk, which is so just horribly disappointing. But I'll set the controller down, do something, and I look back and, he's in the corner going, you tap it. I mean, it sorts itself. But that's definitely a thing. All in all, didn't try it with the keyboard and gerbil because this really seemed like the sit back, relax type experience. And that's how I enjoyed it via big picture. I'm going to give it 3 chairs. Not too bad.
Yeah, it worked pretty good off of the Xbox controller until I noped that because of some of the combat scenarios in here. Works just as well on the Steam controller as well. The default bindings are sanely laid out. They're about the same as what you get on the Xbox controller. The only weird thing is you got to switch your touchpad to joystick mouse because otherwise the camera controls just outright don't work. The only real issue I had with the controls in this game is blocking is super hit or miss. Like there isn't really a good way to utilize the blocking mechanic aside from just using the daggers and dodging everything until you poke everything to death by 1,000 cuts sort of thing. So I'll give it 3 cheers.
The Logitech F310 that I have plugged into the Steam box over there worked fine out of the box. It was properly recognized. The Nvidia Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. controller here also worked fine if I played it locally on this PC, because if I tried to stream it from the Steam box, it would outright not recognize it. One thing I have to complain about is that while you can rebind like keyboard and mouse inputs, you cannot rebind controller inputs. So since they had the brilliant idea of binding parry to the right trigger, I simply never used it. And I got to the end of the game and got to the final boss fight. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, no, I never used it. 3 chairs.
All right, that's 3 chairs for the controls. And finally, we got the funds. Then, did it tickle your nipples?
Well, what the fuck is up with your busted-ass map system, Brad? He says with a question mark. How exactly did that meeting go? I said maybe there were 2 guys there, and Guy X, he was like, hey, let's use a large map that you can zoom into and pick quests. And the other guy was like, oh, fuck no. Let's have a bunch of little fucked up maps, and then get this. We're going to stack them on top of each other so the player can only see one zone at a time. Brilliant, brilliant. And they went ahead and made that because that is your quest finding system. You have books with numbers on them sometimes. And you're like, shrug a fucking emoticon. I was like, just heading towards this one. We don't fucking know. Seriously, I was stuck in that first town trying to sort the fucking quest glyphs for so long, I forgot how to fight. I'm going to have to do a brief little tutorial. And when I was like, oh shit, I forgot how to do all this stuff. Not that there's much to remember. Swing, swing, dodge, block. I mean, that's basically your fighting mechanic. It's very hollow. Didn't really leave me feeling with good thwackiness. You know, I could go on and on about the faults in this critter, but at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing. It's boring. Seriously. After the first 2 hours, I took off the headphones and started hammering on the B button because I simply didn't care about Dialogue Simulator 2015. And to put a little bow on this, this game might as well be on rails. Seriously, you can't jump. I mean, if you're not on the... oh, look, the platform's that much lower. Maybe I want to go over the little walkway. Nope, you gotta stay on this fixed path. Didn't really like it at all. I mean, it's not horrible. I managed to put 2 ons into it before I realized that it didn't get any better. So I'm going to give it 2 chairs.
Yeah, like Ven said, the map is just completely fucked. Some people were just given a crate of whiskey and told to design a navigation system with no regard for the bomber peak whatsoever. I mean, the game really requires you to take a defensive approach because you will get killed to death really, really quickly, and there's not a lot of health potions lying around. So much in the way that Demon Souls or Bloodborne sort of plays, this is the poor man's equivalent of that sort of game. This is the closest we're probably going to get on Linux if you don't really feel like whining this. One thing that was interesting that got brought up right at the beginning, but didn't really have much depth, was the trapping system, because it was sort of an interesting thing. Oh yeah, you can plant these traps all over the place and lure enemies and take a bunch of them out at the same time. And you can do that sort of kinda, except for the whole that's really it. There's no real depth.
That's because you didn't get to the final boss, Jordan.
Well, sure. I was choking through the dialogue, much like Ven. I mentioned in the Shining Sounds how just listening to people refer to proper nouns and this is painful, and it really is. It got to the point where I was hammering the B button as well. I mean, like this game sort of hit my rage button. I snapped a controller in half because of the combat in this. Occasional game will do that, so I usually take that as a sign. Let's put this down before I start destroying some of my other hardware. I mean, I can respect it for what it attempts to do. It's really just not my type of game. I'll give it 2 cheers.
Yeah. So Ven and Jordan already mentioned some of the issues that this game has. Now I'm going to get into the rest of them. why are you showing me my character doing all this amazing shit and all these cutscenes of combat right at the start of the game instead of, giving me a combat tutorial, or at least letting me do that the character is doing. I mean, it's just flailing around for the most part, so I could probably do that. It's kind of a wasted opportunity. And I've actually been through the game once. I got to the final boss and I honestly couldn't be arsed with that fight. But instead of, actually sitting through it and beating the guy, I just went like, you know what? I'm just going to start over again. And I start over and I get these tutorial tips that fill up the entire screen and pause the game right in the middle of combat 90% of the time. And I'm like, why can I not disable this? There is no option to disable this. And the game apparently doesn't register that you've already beaten 99.98% of the game. So, yeah. The plot of the game is so generic and quote-unquote safe that I don't even know why they bother giving you choices. Characters, like the NPC characters, will only rarely acknowledge your decisions at any point other than when you just made said decision. I guess one of the most egregious examples comes from the tutorial itself. The captain asks you to give Peeler, an NPC, some traps, and then, while you're in the temple, he asks you to go look for him. Now, the quest to look for Peeler is a secondary quest, which means you don't have to do it. You can just leave him there to die. Now, whether you rescue him or not is irrelevant, because the captain does not ever mention Peeler again, and for being perfectly honest here, I never see that particular character model used anywhere else in the game at any point. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist outside of the tutorial. And just to put a bow on the bad stuff, the final boss it's just a stupid fuck you hard, because fuck you, that's why. It has a metric fuck ton of HP, and every now and again it conjures a dragon demon thing just because it can. Now, with all that in mind, I love this game. I do. Outside of the last boss, combat is hard but fair. The leveling system gives you a lot of choice. There are like 3 trees that you can put skill points into, and then you have the feats as well to choose what you want your character to be. And out of the bland, generic-ass companions, Mothras shines as a beacon of interesting personality. He is an amazing companion. Yeah, but you only get it like past the halfway point of the game, so take that for what you will. I'm gonna give it 3 chairs for the fun.
Nobody appreciates Zathras, but Bound by Flame gets 2 chairs for the fun. And finally totals up to 2 whole chairs for the game, which is not sure if want, which means that we got a mixed opinion. If it's your thing, check it out. If not, it was on sale for pretty cheap a couple weeks ago. Yep. So if you picked it up for, what was it, like $6 at the time or some such like that?
$6. It's still $6 right now at the time of recording, because the winter sale. So if you like beat 'em ups in the vein of Bloodborne or what have you, this might be the game for you. If not, then stay away from it. Save your $6. Go buy yourself a $5 footlong and throw a loony at a homeless person. I don't know. Final thoughts?
If you can get it on Hella Cell, I mean, it's something to sit back and play. I mean, this is not Skyrim or anything remotely resembling that. Combat's kind of meh. Dialogue is all over the fucking place, like P-Man was saying. And yeah, I said, I got about 2 hours in. It's like, just quit caring. I mean, the story is not there for me. P-Man?
Yeah, well, I like it, but I can see, objectively, I can see that it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. This is that kind of mediocre game that I wish all mediocre games were like, because most mediocre games, I'm like, it's mediocre. I can't really effectively criticize it or drool all over it, as it were. This one, I can criticize the shit out of, and I still enjoy it. I can see what it's doing right, and I can see what it's doing wrong. The two kind of even out, and they make a pretty mediocre game, but I love it. I like it. So
there you
my
go.
opinion,
Bound by
pick it up on
Flame
sale.
is the Battlefield Earth of Linux gaming. Up next, we're doing some hate mail. Nothing wry or witty to say about that. Maybe Pedro has something.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, zombie demon hordes of the internet. It's the hate mail. And at this point, if you don't know how to get in touch with us, fuck you. Seriously. LinuxGameCast.com, contact button. It's easy. You just fill out the thing and you shoot us a message. Unless, of course, you're trying to promote your game. At which point, if you don't send us Steam keys or some builds of your game that we can play around with, we'll just make fun of you. But this week, we have none of that. Apparently, we have some people not wanting to give Tim Schafer some money.
Yeah, it's time for some double wine. This is from Rob K. He says, "For the love of God, stop giving Tim Schafer money. He cannot manage a budget to save his life. That is why no big software house will touch him anymore. If he hires someone that manages the money, makes him stick to a budget, then go ahead." Now, so interestingly enough, this is a hate mail that came before this whole Fig fiasco broke, and it sort of goes to show the mentality that a lot of people are entering the Psychonauts 2 crowdfunding campaign with, because Tim Schafer has proven with multiple crowdfunding campaigns that really it's not so much that he can't deliver a game on budget. His estimation for what that budget actually is way too low. But that's not really common to Double Fine as much as it's common to the entire crowdfunding universe of games as a whole. I mean, look at Skullgirls, look at Divinity, look at any of Double Fine's.
Well, yeah, I mean, you definitely look at that. The general rule of thumb is like whatever your budget, you think your budget is, triple it, and that's definitely going to be your budget. I can't argue. I mean, it's like, known track record for being over budget and games like almost not getting released, and sometimes they get released in an incomplete state. But I will say, I love us some Double Fine. They've always been good to us.
Yep.
And they've always delivered Linux ports. I mean, for the last tons of titles.
Even for Space Base, that game that they abandoned, they crapped out a Linux version.
Yeah, and they basically went back and every single game that they had published as Double Fine, they got the Linux version out, and I had it in the show notes for the whole Valve thing. I'm not about to start shitting on people that support Linux as a gaming platform, because the moment we do that, we lose that. And Double Fine, as bad as Team Schafer is, even frickin' Activision couldn't get him to stick to a budget or to the schedule for that matter. But they have delivered reasonable Linux ports.
Well, I mean, that's what you got to look at when you go in. You know what you're fucking getting into, son. I mean, that's just the way you need to look at it. You know, it will eventually come out. It will be over budget, and it might be in 2 parts.
Yeah.
Or they may just open source the scripting code so that people can fix it on their own.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, Double Fine's been good to us. Really, the whole issue now is the funding model and whether Fig is actually just some horrible scam or is really just the legal shadery crap that you have to do in order to sufficiently power a crowdfunding campaign that allowed payment of dividends. But up next, this is talking about Magica.
Nehemia.
This is from Nehemia.
Yeah.
Nehemia. He says, Magica 2 is for Linux. Have you put it through the CHAIRQUISITION yet? Because there's a Z in there. Are you going to? Well, personally, I'd like to. I had fun with the original Magica. It was a buggy mess, and the network multiplayer just really didn't work past the 5-minute mark. But, you know, the whole combining spell mechanic thing was fun. The writing was spot on, because everyone talks like the Swedish Chef, and I love me some of that.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those games that we will eventually get around to. We might get around to next week if they reply to my email. Guys?
I don't even know what the fucking magic is, to be perfectly honest.
you play as the Swedish Chef from the Muppets and you blow stuff up.
Brilliant!
Yeah, you...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
You see it? Let's come down.
After you. No, after you. After
On
you.
that
No.
bombshell, let's cue the music. You can always find us around 9:30 Eastern Standard or EDT Moontime, depending. Just type in time in Athens. It'll probably come up. Give you the mass in the Googs. I'm Vin Stone. I'm cleverly disguised at Vin Stone on the Twitternets, plus Vin Stone on the G+.
I'm Jordan Sfung. You can find me in a pool of my own sick at The Burning Fool on Twitter, or projectile vomiting some interesting content on Google Plus at plus Jordan Spung.
And you can find me cooking up some spells at Unaccounted For on Twitter, or, plagiarizing some shit on Google Plus at plus Pedro Mateos.
You know, I just realized we never actually said anything about Pedro's racist chair.
Hashtag YOLO Dorito.
It's drift, not ramp.
Is that some sort of sexual innuendo?
It is now.
No, that's actually one of the things that Clarkson got in trouble for.
Hashtag punch producer.
5 dudes.